back to Cinema Vino. It's good to have you guys with us. We got Travis Budd.
It's your boy.
Sean Jordan.
It's your boy.
And Taylor Owens.
Hello.
Bless his heart. My name is Todd Wofford, and we're starting off our new series on Beatles movies. It's going to be good stuff. These, my favorite group of all time. I think probably Taylor's favorite group of all time.
100%.
So this is our wheelhouse. That's going to be fun. And yeah, the Beatles, they had kind of a very, like a really varied group of movies that they did, all very different from each other, and still kind of different components of the Beatles' personality come across in each one of them. Very famously, Roger Ebert, I think it's so accurate, he said that the Beatles had 4 distinct seasons when they were together. And this first movie we're going to do, Hard Day's Night, is right in the middle of springtime for them. Yep. This is the beginning. This is everything's fresh and new.
Their meteoric rise.
Yeah. They still love being Beatles at this point. It's still fun.
We start at spring?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So, yeah, they're still like they're having a great time with it. The screaming fans and, you know, the people crushing up against their car is still fun to them.
Yeah, embracing it, yeah.
Yeah. Because they went through hard times. They all grew up pretty poor.
Would you say they went through a hard day's night?
Hard day's night. So which stems from a malapropism of Ringo Starr, who was prone to kind of those Yogi Berra type like misstatements. You know, we've had a really hard day's night. 8 days a week is another one. Tomorrow Never Knows is another one. He was prone to making like gibberish statements that they co-opted into songs. Hard Day's Night was one of them. But yeah, this is definitely
It'd be great if all their songs are just making fun of Ringo.
Yeah,
you fucking idiot.
Yeah. I mean, I'd say John and Paul turned all that into gold every time. Yeah, this is definitely, they had about an 18-month spring. And I would say that the next film we're going to watch, Help, is in the beginning of summer.
Yeah.
There is a noticeable difference between this movie and that one in the Beatles. If you go back and watch them back to back, in that movie, they look a little more tired. They look worn out, I think. It's like, you know, they look more stoned as well. Being stoned is part of it. They were not into drugs yet as of this movie.
How can you tell with Ringo?
It's very true.
That's valid. Well, let me ask you this. It kind of seemed like this was the start of them getting toured around a lot, getting rushed around, getting managed very heavily. Yeah. Do you think that played a big part in them getting so tired as they got kind of pushed around to perform all the time?
They got old, yes.
Yeah. And I think that was their whole thing. Like they talk about it in so many things where it's like it became not even about, and then I hate to be that guy, but it wasn't even about the music anymore. It was like, we're just going to see the Beatles. And so I think they've said it in multiple things. It's like, you know, their sets were 40 minutes long, maybe 40 minutes long. And it was just people screaming nonstop.
I mean, that's what music was back then.
Yeah. And it was like, you know, and they were saying like, we couldn't hear ourselves. We couldn't hear this, you know, and they talk about it just like, you know, I think that one of the famous ones is Shea Stadium, where it's like, I think John kind of loses his mind a little bit. And it's like, at that point, do they even care what we're playing?
Yeah.
Like we're just going to go insane. Like,
no, we could get up here and just like fake strum for 4 minutes and they're going to scream their head.
And I think that was like the mental toll on it. It was like, you know, they're just natural songwriters, so they're producing. I think Paul McCartney's famous quote was like, songwriting's a habit.
Yeah.
It was like, it's not just like I wake up and I decide to write a song. Like they just come out. Like they're just coming out. And so it was like, I think that just drained them. It was like, we're doing this, we're doing that. And I don't think anybody's really caring about the music. And this just kind of shows that it's like, I mean, people are just literally rushing them.
Just bum rushing.
Just for like really like ultimately like no reason.
Yeah. So
it was like,
are we watching one movie from each season? Is that kind of the goal?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, I mean, they do a 40-minute set, but some of their songs are like 2 minutes, 10 seconds.
Yeah. 40 minutes is probably on the high side. You might be looking at 20 or 30.
Yeah.
And it's always the same songs pretty much every time on every tour. Like they'll do different stuff later. But
okay, how much were these tickets running people back then?
Like
a sixpence? Like, come on.
Yeah.
a farthing.
Like in this economy?
Yeah.
Come on.
I think that it was pretty crazy to get tickets. It was difficult to get tickets, especially like stuff like Shea Stadium.
Oh, yeah.
They sold out very, very quickly.
8 bottles of milk. Warm.
That's going currency, man.
So this was released August 12th, 1964.
Damn.
This grossed $14 million against a budget of $500K. So, Yeah.
Money.
What is that, loonies or like what currency?
Loonies and toonies. This was translated into American dollars, so I don't know what the exchange
That's
was.
like 600,000 pish poshes.
Exactly. How many shillings is that?
That's 35 Christmas gooses. The finest goose in all the land.
Yeah, I remember at our liquor store where somebody would bring every year something called figgy Christmas pudding, and it's like I would look at that and think that's the most British thing I've ever.
Yeah, all I know is from the song. So bring us the figgy pudding. So bring us the figgy pudding.
I couldn't help but read that in a thick, like, it's a figgy Christmas pudding. Of course.
You there, boy.
What day is it? It's figgy pudding day.
I got my figgy Christmas pudding. This presents an exaggerated, kind of silly day in the life of the Beatles. You get to experience it from pretty much their point of view. You kind of travel around with them. The four boys play fictionalized versions of themselves, kind of fitting the archetype that the media had already built for them, where John is kind of the goofy, like, smart ass. Paul is like the smooth talking, like, more ladies man type guy. George is the quiet, kind of introverted dude.
He's artistic.
Yeah. Ringo is the pitiful mascot, who, is kind of always frustrated.
Dude, I fucking love Ringo in this. When he's dancing on the dance floor, Ringo's just going to town. He's the love of life, man.
Yeah,
he's like a Labrador. I love it.
Speaking of teleportation, we just did Jason Takes Manhattan. Fucking John Lennon teleporting right out of that bathtub.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's just
he has that power.
Dry.
Yeah, it's awesome,
amazing.
And so one of the through lines of the movie is that the boys have to babysit Paul's, I learned this term, and I don't know if I'm sure you've heard this before, but chaos gremlin. It's like Paul's chaos gremlin of a grandfather.
How are you just learning this term? Don't you have kids?
Our daughter is definitely a chaos gremlin, like a cute troublemaker. And that's exactly what Paul's grandfather
Captain
is.
Crunch is a chaos gremlin.
Yeah.
Wild card, bitches.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And so, Paul's grandfather, they kind of he gets them into all sorts of jams and, just kind of supplies the plot with what little momentum that it has.
He's got a chip on his shoulder. Like, I need his origin story.
Yeah.
He's got a chip on his teeth.
But he's very clean.
He's clean.
Yeah, he's a very clean old man.
It's quite clean.
So that stems from a previous part that actor played, which would have been a funny joke at the time that doesn't make any sense now, where he played a character who was known as a dirty old man.
Yeah, that's
so.
Oh,
I had heard those too. That is what because I had to like reference them. Like, what was that from? That is the one I saw. I saw a second one that clearly was false.
Yeah,
but it was like an inside joke, which is I love the internet. It tells you things. It's like it was an inside joke from the Beatles because Paul was late to a meeting. And Brian Epstein was like, well, where's Paul? And I was like, oh, he was having a bath. And he was like, well, he's late. And I guess, and they said that George said like, yeah, but he's going to be clean. Yeah. And it was like that was, and I was like, that is false. Yeah. And it was like, but I thought, oh, that is hilarious. And then that's the one that's the most.
I mean, both things can be true.
Yeah. But that was it.
Am I misremembering the lyrics from their later songs that they mentioned being a clean old man?
Yeah, that was.
Yeah. I mean, like Penny Lane said, references a clean machine. There's several references to being clean.
Okay. Is it all self-referential back to this movie, or
I don't know.
I don't know either. But I did see that as wouldn't it be funny because that's the whole thing. Is like I guess the actor was very prominent in a TV show, and that was every single episode. They were like, "Oh, such a dirty old man." Mm-hmm. Like that was like his borderline tagline. Yeah.
So they had fun calling
it. It was the line that they would say, and the whole crowd would go, "Ah!"
Yeah, they're like, "Ah."
So you can imagine at that time, if you're sitting in the theater, like, "Oh, he's very clean." It's like, okay, so they're making fun of that,
right?
So this was directed by Richard Lester, who directed
Superman 2 and 3.
Mm-hmm.
That's weird.
Yeah.
Also, fuck that guy from taking Richard Donner's Superman 2 job.
Yeah. Which this is more his wheelhouse of being a comedy director. This is more.
What percentage of Superman 2 did this guy? Like 10%? I saw the Richard Donner cut.
How dare you?
My understanding.
That dude like licked 2 fingers and dipped it in and swirled. That was the amount of Superman 2 that he did.
Travis is very triggered.
Anyway,
this is turning into a Superman podcast.
Fuck that guy.
With some very raunchy finger metaphors there. And so this was written by a Welsh screenwriter named Alan Owen, who trailed the Beatles for a few days to kind of pick up their vernacular. A lot of the quotes you hear, like, for example, when they're giving interviews and their little, like, one-liners were taken directly from stuff they said in actual interviews. Of, like, what do you call that haircut? I call it Arthur. Or like, how'd you find America? I turned left at Greenland. It's like, he wrote down all the stuff
they're legit, yeah.
They're famous for their, like, snark during interviews.
Yeah.
That's what made them gave so
they're
many.
very clever.
That's what made them cute and innocent.
Yeah. The press just ate that up.
Yeah.
That was their ace in the hole, was that they were funny. They could hold their own. Yeah. It reminds me of hearing Bill Burr one time gave an interview where he was talking about Oasis, and he was like, I'm jealous of those guys because they're rock stars, but they're hilarious.
Yeah.
He said, those guys are as funny as anything in my act.
John Lennon would have loved Twitter.
100%.
Oh, yeah.
Because he loved to stir up trouble.
Yeah.
But, the quote about that they gave this movie, you're talking about being like bored, whatever. It's like the quote from, I think, Paul's grandfather, like, so far I've only seen a room and a car and a room. That was taken from something one of them said.
Yeah.
Since I've been here, I've just seen a room and a car and a room.
If John Lennon would have lived, Albus Dumbledore, man,
he would never.
That's 10 points for Gryffindor.
He would never work with her.
Well, now, but I'm just saying, Richard Harris days.
Yeah. So they took a lot of stuff from real life in this movie. There's certain scenes that are filmed that were not in the script. Like they just kept the cameras rolling, like John snipping the Taylor's measuring thing. It's like, I declare this ship open or whatever. It's like, that was just not planned. That's just him acting normal, and they just filmed it and put it in there. There's a lot of those scenes that were not scripted.
Ringo didn't even know they were filming a movie.
And supposedly they were so pleased with Ringo and how he did that they added the whole sequence of him like running away from the band and going off on his own and running into a kid. And all
that whole bit wasn't a script. He just like went off.
I didn't know that. Yeah.
The camera loves him. Or just can't stop looking, or can't quite look him in the eye.
This was the first Beatles soundtrack of all original Beatles songs. And there are a lot of classics on the soundtrack. Can't Buy Me Love, She Loves You, All My Loving, and I Love Her. Pretty much everything is just top notch. Even some of the deep tracks like If I Fell, Tell Me Why, I'm Happy to Just Dance With You, all good stuff. So obviously we know probably what I'm going to give this movie. I'm curious to hear. We'll start with Taylor. I'm curious to hear what you.
Well, real quick, what are we drinking?
So yeah.
Oh yeah.
Righteous.
So
Righteous.
The Beatles at this point in history were not quite into drugs like they would be later. They were big partiers, big drinkers. Their cocktail of choice amongst the entire group was whiskey and Coke. But Paul McCartney, and within the group, was a big fan of rum and Cokes.
40%.
So with that in mind,
Cane Rock,
and given the fact that we did Manhattans for the Friday the 13th, I thought we'd break with the whiskey, do some rum for Sir Paul, and do some rum and Cokes.
Yeah.
So if you're looking for something to drink while you're drinking Hard Day's Night, you could drink a rum and Coke. And you could drink pretty much any dark liquor and Coke, and you would be in line with what they drank.
Did they drink anything in the movie? I don't remember.
I don't remember them doing any booze because this would have been pitched so much towards kids.
Yeah, no,
they would have been like, "Oh, we're clean. We don't drink things."
It's very clean.
Clean.
they evolved later to be more into wine. As by the time if you watch Let It Be and Get Back,
it's cultured.
They drink more. Like George drinks white wine, and they they got their gophers bringing them more glasses of wine.
Yeah.
So they got more. Supposedly Paul had developed a pretty good palate for wine. But at this point, they were drinking hard booze.
Yeah.
So they were like 21, 22. They were boozing pretty good.
Young and
they were youths.
Yeah.
So
youths.
So Tay was.
So you probably think I'm going to give this a 10, and well, you're probably right. It was like and it's weird to say give it a 10 because it is going to be like a nostalgia thing and everything, all this stuff. And the next movie we're going to review, I can already tell you I'm going to give it a 10. And the reason why is like, because even when I first saw this, I was like, I give it a 10 because of a musical soundtrack. It was like, it's basically just one, and even watching it again, it's just one big music video with some cool little things sporadically through there. Then there was a storyline, but I'm here for the music. And that's why, no one's going like, ooh, it's a Beatles movie. I wonder how they're acting. No, you're going there people that were going to see it. You're going to see the Beatles. Like what song, I just want to see it. And so to me, it's just one long music video for me personally. But when I watched it again, I was like, man, this is actually a pretty fucking good movie. It's like the storyline is funny, but also like I went back to like, I kind of like the shots. And I knew this way before. It wasn't like it was like a brand new thing, but And I Love Her shot where they're in the studio and there's that like, there's this whole panning thing of Paul playing. It was like that light shot. I mean, it was like, that's like the camera was like going in front of that light. Mm-hmm. And it was like, and they were talking about how hard of a shot. And this is all pre-stuff I watched before, but it was like, it was such a hard shot to do. And I'm like, man, why are you going through so much effort for something that's going to make so much money? It's like they were making a Fast and Furious 14. It was like it's going to make movie or it's going to make money.
It doesn't matter how good this movie
exactly. It's like and I was like, it was going to sell. Like, and you're like, holy shit! Like they were putting effort into this, and it was like it wasn't just that they were just trying to fuck around and be like, oh, we're just going to put the Beatles name on there, which I think they did later on. But I was like, man, they actually kind of like for them like being 21, young guys. I just found this movie just be like, well, again, I actually hadn't seen it in like a couple of years. And I say that I probably haven't seen it like in 10 years, but I just love this movie, the music, and also and maybe because I'm just a Beatle fan. So I can't give it anything less than a 10, but watching these guys, when you watch it, like, man, how young they were. And I put myself in their age, it's just like, man, if I was 21 and I was a fucking rock star, I'd probably be like, go fuck yourself. I don't want to be on a train with an old man playing in the end of a train with a bunch of, in a box car of a train playing a song. I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
And I was like, but these guys were like, yeah, let's fucking do it. Because like you said, like this is like their rise to, that's a great, I had never really heard that. It was like, this is like their rise to fame. So they're like, yeah, I'm game. Let's do it. Let's do it. Let's do what we want. But it still was shot so well. I still, a lot of this stuff gets parodied. I forgot, like, I can't remember what episode it is in The Simpsons, but they do a kind of a Can't Buy Me Love montage. But it's with Grandpa Simpson. It's a bunch of the old people, and like they're jumping around, and then they all get hurt or something like that. It was like, so this thing has been like spoofed,
lampooned.
Lampooned.
It's iconic.
Yeah, exactly. And I think and I didn't know this until I watched it. It was like, again, when I was younger, I was like, oh, it's a fucking Beatles movie. It's going to be awesome. But I didn't know this movie was like well regarded at Academy Awards.
Very influential.
Yeah, it had like nominated for 2. Mm-hmm. It was like, I don't know.
Screenplay was one of them.
Yeah, I don't know if they won, but really? I was like, even I didn't know. I was,
fuck else came out there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It was like, I was like, what is happening? I was like, is that just because
Octopussy?
They were just the Beatles.
Yeah.
I think that's what it was. I mean, like, that's where I'm like, they could have literally come out and just played a 40-minute video of just them playing.
Yes.
And that could have won. But they went through an effort to like go through it and everything. I was like, and albeit an odd plot, but it was like, it's just like they were like, hey, we're going to put this old man in. I mean, like, you had to come up with a story to make the movie. And this guy kind of fit into it.
Now, to the allegory, if Oasis came out with a movie like this.
They did. And it was just them playing music. Let's see. They played with something called Live from Main Road. They also had something Live by the Sea, which was literally just behind the scenes videos of them talking and then going right into their set.
I would love to watch them, like a real documentary of them like getting in a fight.
Yeah.
Which probably every day.
Oh, yeah. 100%. Yeah. But, and that's the thing. Like it was just them. I mean, I have those videos. It's just a concert like that. And so that's why I'm more impressed. I'm like, they could have done this, but they made an actual movie out of it and they made a plot line. And so then that's where I have to kind of almost remove myself, but I can't because I'm just like, and again, this was the first Beatle movies I had seen. I was a huge fan of the Beatles just going into it. And watching it again, I think I was just more shocked of like how well it was done. And again, I just feel bad saying it. I have to give it a 10. Like if I did anything else, it would just, it would not be a Beatle fan. Now there's other movies that I will definitely not give that grade to, but it's a 10. It's well done. The storyline is there. And let's be honest, you're there for the music. But I said, like, I do love Ringo in this one. As like Ringo was good.
Ringo's, honestly, I have so much more respect for Ringo.
Yeah, Ringo was good in this.
Ringo fucking just dances his heart out.
He's the most natural actor of the 4 of them.
He dances like no one's watching.
Yeah. And did they play the whole album on this?
Most of it.
Yeah, I meant to double check on that. Like I didn't
Not
know
quite all of it, but
yeah, I didn't know if they played the whole album on that, but
and they pull up some stuff from Please Please Me as well. Like you'll hear like the instrumental version of This Boy.
Yeah,
that's I'm happy to dance with you. You'll hear some other stuff snuck in there. They but yeah, for your point about what else was out that year, it was like I think the main thing was that this was so different than everything else that was out at the time.
The 20th iteration of Ben-Hur.
I mean, that bunch of musicals like My Fair Lady and those kind of standard John
Rodgers
movies.
And Hammerstein.
Well, and what's weird is like I think and again internet and this was actually years ago, but I remember reading this and people were saying like they were going to movies. And people were screaming in the movies, and it was like it wasn't like they were going to like. I mean, like they were just screaming. I'm like, are you screaming for that long? I was like, that's outrageous.
Yeah,
but yeah, it's like fans were going to the theaters, and they were screaming in the theaters.
Yeah.
Like that is outrageous.
And they touch on a lot of things from real life in this story about how they would have dummy cars going in different directions. Like they would break into different ways.
Where they go through the car to go to another car.
They would have one limo go this way, one limo.
I always did love that scene. It was that
was clever.
They would have fake check-ins at other hotels to throw off people. Like there'd be people swarming other hotels. They would have them like secret exits out of the hotels or whatever to keep them from getting mobbed. And the guys would still get like stuff ripped off of them.
To that point, how was it George Harrison goes to a modeling agency and just sort of like stumbles into where they don't know who he is.
And that's like the joke of like they're so hip and with it they don't know that they have a Beatle in their waiting room. It's like they have no idea who he is.
Yeah.
They're all about what's hip and trendy and now, and they don't realize that they've got one of the most famous people in the world in front of them.
And one of my favorite scenes, not of this movie, but of another movie that I actually do love a lot, it was That Thing You Do. And right when they hit to like number 7 or 5, is like they have that scene where like they go outside and everybody's yelling at them and they get into a car and people are slamming on it. And I think Tom Hanks is like, give them what they want, Shades, and he puts the glasses on like, and they lose their mind. I'm like, man, how crazy is that like the Beatles dealt with that like every day of their life.
Yeah.
But that is insane.
I just saw a thing about like a pair of Elvis undies that he shit in went for $8,000. And one of the comments was like,
that's like 900 toonies.
Yeah, it was like, great. Elvis shits himself, years later makes $8,000. I do it once. My wife gets pissed.
It's not fair.
Yeah.
But there were soiled undies of Elvis's.
And probably some soiled onions in there too.
$8,000.
The soiled onions led to the soiled undies.
That's probably. Wow. Saw those
soiled onions would be a great band name.
Sandwiches.
But like at this point in time, like it's for all of us who were born way after the fact, it's difficult to imagine what this was like.
Oh, Beatlemania? Yeah. I can't imagine.
It was Backstreet Boys and
NSYNC. It was kind of similar, but yeah, it's like
not even.
I mean, it's like when the Beatles landed in Melbourne, there were 300,000 people to greet them.
Yeah, Melbourne.
Like the toast. Yeah, so there's supposedly 300,000 people there to greet them, And it was, again, Beatle humor where it's like, that was more people than to greet the Queen is what they told the guys. And George Harrison's response, well, she hadn't had any hit records in a while.
Yeah.
But, it's like they had at one point in 64, they had 14 songs in the top 40 at the same time, including 1 through 5. They sold more in that week than all the other people in the top 100 combined. It's like there's no precedent now for that level of success.
MJ, like the Thriller album, I think every individual song on the Thriller album spent time on number 1.
But the crazy thing about that is like, this was only one of, I think, 3 albums they released that year. They had 3 Thrillers that year.
They were prolific. I will say they spat out songs.
Because it was like they had, right before this, they had on One Best. It was with the Beatles, then this album, and then Beatles for Sale, all of which had multiple number 1 songs within the span of about 10 months. Help was a year later after this. It had it had Ticket to Ride on it and Help and Yesterday. So it was just crazy. I mean, they had like multiple Thrillers in a 12-month calendar. So it's crazy.
That's crazy.
So yeah, like I say, it's like all of these movies, it's like you can make the same argument of like the quality of the movies are up and down, but the music is always there.
Yeah.
One trivia note about the train scene where they're filming on the train, the blonde girl who is kind of flirting with him later becomes George's wife.
Oh,
Yeah.
For how long?
Through the Beatles career, and then she later divorced him for Eric Clapton.
There you go. I knew you knew that. I was just like, but who does she go to? Yeah.
She has a type.
Yeah. She inspired the songs Something, but also from Clapton, Layla and Wonderful Tonight. So she actually inspired love songs from both artists.
Ooh.
Yeah.
I do love Wonderful Tonight.
And then her sister married Mick Fleetwood, I believe. And there are several Fleetwood Mac songs about her. So there you go. So you're a 10.
Oh, yeah. Sure. I mean, for certain reasons, but yeah, I have to be a 10. Legally, you got to be a 10.
I agree. It's like I have to cover myself.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Sean, what are your thoughts?
Not a 10.
Oh.
I think as movies go, this gave me a lot of like Duck Soup vibes. Like a lot of Marx Brothers kind of.
And they got compared to the Marx Brothers.
Yeah.
Shenanigans, them just sort of running around, being sort of like you said, chaos gremlins just in everything that they're doing.
Yeah.
The actual movie itself, like you said, if you're coming here for the movie, this is a 5. Out of 10. It's not a good movie.
No.
Yeah.
It's a Beatles music video. And I think for that reason, I just like, it's fine. It's fine. Like Beatles music is fine. It's good. It has like a historic precedence. Like it was like my mom loves the Beatles. She sang the Beatles to me as a kid all the time. Like I have immense respect for them. I'm not going to go out of my way to listen to the Beatles. I'm not going to go out of my way to watch a Beatles movie of just like a music video of their stuff. Like I enjoy the next couple movies that we're going to do because I've seen them before. I'm not going to go out of my way to watch this one again. Like this one feels like it's just sort of them throwing together a music video.
Let's do a movie.
Yeah,
exactly.
And let's be goofy and just like, do shit for an hour and a half.
So right now, your mom will probably listen to this podcast.
We'll absolutely listen to this podcast.
How disappointed is she to hear you?
Yeah, I am out of her will.
Yeah. Disowned.
I am automatically disowned with this take. But yeah, I give this a 5. It's fine. It felt like it was like produced on the fly. It felt like the acting was like what you would expect of 20 something non-actors who are just there to be goofy.
Yeah.
And they're just having a good time. And that's fine. It feels like them just having fun.
Yeah. And that's a clear point. Like your fandom for the Beatles will influence.
Absolutely.
And that's what I'm saying. It was like, I can't give it anything else. It was like, I think my fandom.
You can't be impartial.
Yeah. And it was like, I mean.
And I respect that.
And that's, and I was thinking about this the other day. It was like, because I would just randomly put on Beatles stuff. And I was listening to a podcast maybe about a year ago. It was 2 years ago, right when the Get Back thing was coming out. And it actually was, one of them was, the It's Always Sunny podcast. They were like, enough of the Beatles. Enough. We know they were great.
Yeah.
And I
get it.
And it's like, and someone had mentioned, it was like, he didn't, not these words, but like Beatle fatigue. It's like, we're talking about the Beatles again. Cool. The greatest band ever. It was like 60 years ago, live in the now, it's just like, come on. And I'm just like,
hard to not talk about my reaction to this movie without it being a referendum on the Beatles as a whole.
Exactly. And I think that's where I can't separate it.
Exactly.
It was
like the Beatles are fine.
Yeah.
Yes, their music is highly influential. Their music is like, you can't get away from how big they were and how much of a phenomenon they were. I own the White Album. I own Revolver. I own like a bunch of stuff on vinyl of theirs because my parents were big Beatles fans because they were alive in that era. And they were musicians. This is a big influence on them. Mm-hmm. So it's hard to get away from the Beatles influence, but as like the music itself, for me, the Beatles are fine.
Yeah.
I'm not going to go out of my way to listen to I'm not going to listen to the Beatles.
It's like a backlash in a way.
I guess.
Yeah.
It's more like just like it's fine.
Yeah.
In the same way that I don't really go out of my way to listen to like Sabrina Carpenter, but the music is good. I enjoy Sabrina Carpenter.
Yeah, but I'm not that new song too. That sucks.
Yeah, but again, I'm not going out of my way to listen to her. I'm not listening to Taylor Swift.
Yeah,
but Taylor Swift, she's fine. It's pop music that's popular, and I enjoy it. But I'm not going out of my way to listen to it because I listen to other stuff.
I think, and I 100% agree, and I do think it's like, I remember seeing the memes last year when they were releasing the new Beatles song. And people were like, Beatles fans were like, yeah, of course. Even I was like, song's okay.
Yeah.
And I was like, it's like, oh, this is they finally all did it, whatever, the other John Lennon song. And people were like kind of making fun of it. They were like, okay, yeah, man, some old recording from John Lennon that they remastered. Cool. And it was like, almost like making fun of the Beatle fans.
Yeah.
They're like, 100% agree. It's like, yeah, why do I care so much about this song that John had a loop of in 1970? And it was just like, it's like, I don't know. I still care a little bit. And I was like, but I understand why people don't care.
Well,
I get that.
And also like going back and watching like Indiana Jones, it's like this thing has become so ubiquitous that now you go back and you watch it. It's hard to appreciate what it was at the time because it sort of set the precedent and it set such a big cultural milestone that now everything that happens after that feels derivative.
Yeah. But as Peter Griffin says on Family Guy, like it insists upon itself.
It does. It does. And I think it's so hard to separate the Beatles from the Beatles that like
and
this
Beatlemania.
And Beatlemania. Like if you watch this movie independently, having no knowledge of the Beatles, no knowledge of the music, this movie fucking sucks.
5-4. Like you said,
it's fine.
100%.
It's fine. It's fine. It's a fine movie. I give it a 5. I'm not going to go out of my way to watch it. But like, you can't watch it without the context of the Beatles. It's hard not to conflate the two.
Yeah.
And so like, the movie itself, I enjoyed like bits of it. I thought there were like fun parts that I was like, haha, look at them. They're
the montage of Ringo.
Up to no good. Like Ringo dancing on the dance floor on bananas. I loved it. Like,
it's like you said, it's like you also feel that like probably that pressure of like, I don't want to like say this is a 5 and then say, well, I'm not a Beatles fan or whatever, like that it's a referendum on the group itself.
Right. I don't want this to be a referendum on my take on the Beatles.
Yeah.
Like as a movie, this is a 5.
It's like
that is true. I mean,
you can be a huge Beatles fan and look at this like, it's all right for this movie.
Sure.
You know?
Yeah.
Oh, and I do. I was like, man, this is not my favorite Beatle movie. But the other ones,
as Beatles guys, what is your favorite era of the Beatles? What's your favorite album? Like, where do you kind of land? Is this it?
About now and the next movie we do.
Yeah. And it's tough for me. I love Help too. That's a great album. I mean, I'm weird when it comes to bands like the Beatles and Zeppelin. Sometimes I fall in love with like weird little tracks like on Help, like I Need You,
Oh yeah. I think Paperback Writer is my favorite Beatles song.
Yeah.
It's just like, one track kind of hooks you. It's just kind of weird.
Yeah.
It's but like the early Beatles stuff is not where I vibe.
No.
It feels very like 50s, 60s kind of.
And that's kind of what it is. When you're talking about this album kind of being the original stuff, like nothing covered. And it was like, and I think that is also, sometimes when I listen to younger Beatles stuff, I have that like nostalgia of kind of watching this of like, I'm more impressed. I'm just like, man, so they just knocked out, this album in 3 days.
Yeah.
Whatever it is. I'm just like, man, that's impressive. And it's like, this song I don't like. And I was like, but they did this in...
But watching them just like hammer...
Yeah, I was like, but they did this in like, 17 takes, but those 17 takes took, 30 minutes and they just... I was like, what?
Yeah.
And it's like, and I think that's where like, and again, I'll probably never be able to separate it. I'm just like more impressed with the stuff they've done where I'm just like, man, that's just like unheard of.
And I enjoyed Let It Be because we podcasted on that.
Get Back, yeah.
Get Back, yeah. Oh, Get Back, yeah. It was maybe like 4 years ago. I don't remember, but I think it was just you and I just kind of cranked it out.
Yeah. The Peter Jackson?
It was the Peter Jackson like documentary, and it's worth watching.
So what was the other one after that? Didn't he do one more that just came out?
Well, I mean, he remastered the Let It Be, the original movie.
There was a, I think Paul like came out with the
Rick Rubin.
Yeah, the Rick Rubin Paul.
I don't know if that's Peter Jackson or not.
I don't think it is, but I think it's just Paul putting it out.
Yeah,
that was might be what you're thinking of.
And that was pretty cool too.
That was within the last 6-8 months, years.
Oh no,
it's been a year or two ago.
Yeah. That was a few years ago.
There was one that showed where Paul McCartney was basically coming up with maybe Let It Be, or he was coming up.
Oh, that was Get Back.
That was Get Back, and then something else came out after that is also on Disney Plus.
It was like the Beatles documentary from this time period, like the Beatles 64, because that was
that might have been
I want to say it wasn't Robert Zemeckis. It was somebody like that, though, that oversaw that.
Okay.
And they remastered the footage that was around this time period. There's some stuff behind the scenes of this movie.
I don't know. I didn't watch that one.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, it's, it's a deep dive into this time period. I mean, if you're a big fan, it's worth it. So you're 5.
I'm a 5.
Yeah. So I am also a 5. But I do love the Beatles, and I will go out of my way to listen to them. I got introduced to them mainly. I just bought a bunch of like greatest hits albums when I finally got like a CD player. So I had the red album and the blue album. So the early stuff and then the later stuff.
Yeah, it was like 64 to 67
and then 67 on.
Yeah.
And I liked all the songs from both, but I would primarily listen to the 67 on. This movie,
I like their later catalog more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sgt. Pepper's.
This movie was not, I give it a 5. I like the grandpa and all of the.
I do like. I
thought he was pretty good.
Yeah.
But like, I also watched a lot of the Monkees whenever I was at the babysitter.
Me too.
Which movie kind of set.
Just you wait for the next one.
Yeah. This was a precursor for all of that. But that's what I saw first.
Yeah.
So in my mind, when I'm watching this and I'm like, oh, I've seen this done better in like a season of the Monkees. Like, it's not the same thing. The songs from the Monkees are not as great. I mean, there are some fucking good songs.
There are.
I enjoyed.
No doubt.
Like the part where they say like, hey, hey, we're the Monkees.
Yes.
Yeah. We like
to Clarksville.
And then that song from Shrek.
Yeah. Daydream Believer.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, wait, no. Daydream Believer. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. From Shrek.
Anyway.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Was that Smash Mouth?
Yes.
Hey, they were just in town. They were just in town.
Another great band.
Yeah.
But yeah, for this, it was a 5 for me because I was watching it. I was not really in the mood. And then the songs would come on and I'd be like, all right, I've heard this. And I would skip the song and watch it.
I get it, man. Yeah.
Like, so I didn't actually get to see the pan that you were talking about. I was like, oh, well, shit. I guess I should have watched that part. But I was like, all right, and this was on YouTube. So I watched it at 2 times.
It was,
I was like, let's get.
I know it was on YouTube.
It was
yeah,
already sped up to begin with.
Yeah. And that's why I was saying it was like 2 minutes and 10 seconds for a song because I would like skip 10 seconds at a time and I'd hit it like 6-8 times. I'm like, oh, the song's over. Well, shit. All right. That was.
It's like,
but it was.
Man, Hard Days Out.
It
fast.
in a shorter amount of time, and I was like, it was before I had to go to work that day, and I was like, hey, I got it in. All right, watch this whole movie in like 40 minutes.
Shit. Because that's all the substance to this movie.
That legitimately is 100%.
Sometimes
but to me, it's all like It seems to be, you put the camera and you're looking down a hallway and this door opens and like, oh no, it's a guy in a gorilla suit, and he closes the door and then somebody opens the next door and like, oh my God, it's like a girl in lingerie. Close the door and like, oh, and then we run across. Like, that's all.
It was very Benny Hill.
Very cartoony.
Scooby-Doo.
Yeah.
So like I enjoyed it. I know it's a classic. I want people to think I'm cool, so I wanted to give it a higher like score, but it was just not my bailiwick.
It is very Benny Hill. When you say that, it's like it really does.
Yeah, but I'm big enough of a fan to know that like I love the guitar solo in Let It Be and the remastered Let It Be. Not as cool of a guitar solo.
Is that kind of like a Han shot first situation?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's fucking dog shit. I got the remastered and I'm like, what the fuck is this? Because I'm listening to Let It Be and then it was like, oh, here's the guitar solo. And then they're using the fucking B-sides. I'm like, why?
Yeah.
This is bullshit.
Okay, can I just ask? This is back to the movie plot a little bit, but like, what the fuck is this studio that they're recording in? Because they have so much stuff going on the soundstage.
Yeah.
There's like a Shakespearean play.
Yeah.
There's like a chorus line. There's the Beatles. There's also like a marketing agency somewhere on here. There's like a cafeteria.
Yeah. And to me,
what is this?
It's like if you watch the movies that are coming out about the time period of Fellini, that those kind of surreal, surreal realism where it's like it presents like the absurd is like every day.
Just insane.
Yeah.
And that's the Duck Soup vibe.
Yeah.
It's like,
It takes something nutty and makes it just mundane.
Yeah.
You know, it's like we watch Blazing Saddles, where it's like the brawl that spills out in the Warner Brothers back lot.
Yeah.
And then they like burst into the cafeteria, and they got like Hitler sitting there. It's like, yeah, they're gonna lose me today after the bunker scene. You know, it's like just wacky, just shenanigans.
Yeah.
You know, it's absurd. It's absurdism. So,
but it just, you know, it gets a little too cray. It wasn't my jam. Also, like you were saying, there's the being a Beatles fan, and then there's the Beatlemania. I can appreciate the Beatlemania, but it doesn't translate for me. And there's some guy I follow on Facebook for like comic book stuff. He does like fan films for comic books called Bat in the Sun. Dude's name is Aaron Chernicki, but he's like always got a hard on for the Beatles and Paul McCartney. But his like fanaticism is a real boner killer for me. I'm just like, man, just calm down.
It's kind of cringe.
We're being such a hoe.
Well, like, and that's what I'm saying.
Heard it here first.
And that's the thing. It's like, I think there is Beatle fatigue. It was like, because I'm telling you, when Paul McCartney, Ringo, but when Paul passes away, I'm going to tell you, it ain't going to be good. They're going to like, I mean, like, what? No. I mean, like, there's going to be so much shit on TV. There's going to be all this. And like, people are going to be like, fuck him. You know, it's like, it's like, you know, like, live in the now. You know, that was so many years ago. I'm like, Paul's done some good shit since the Beatles.
A bass player from Wings?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it was like,
that's our buddy Doug Dixon did stand up for several years. And one of his things in his stand up was like, yeah, man, did you guys hear like, who died this weekend? Paul McCartney. And everybody's like, oh God, what? He's like, yeah, I just heard, man, lead singer of, you guessed it, Wings. And I was like, I'm fucking gone.
Yeah.
I was gone. I was like, that's hilarious.
Yeah.
Okay, Wings is good though.
I also fake killed a whole bunch of celebrities. Like it was,
Ruben Studdard.
Sorry.
Yeah.
It was our
He died several times on your watch.
That's true.
I think Ricky Martin too.
Yeah. R.I.P.
So yeah, for me, again, I'll diverge from you guys. This is a 10. But like,
what?
I'll give us a 10.
You can't.
I get it.
I agree with
it.
I 100% agree with both of you.
I respect you guys.
I just can't.
Yeah.
It was like legally.
Honestly, it was like Taylor's fanaticism back in middle school and high school that introduced me mostly to the Beatles. And then I started listening to him. And then he let me borrow his White Album. Thank you.
Okay, White Album is Album's incredible.
What?
Yeah.
Yes, I burned it and then I gave it back to you. But fucking Guitar Gently Weeps, Rocky Raccoon, Glass Onion.
So
my titties have not gotten soft since.
Todd, I want to hear it, but because I'm a Beatle fan, like Bailey's, we got this whole thing of like vinyls, like old vinyls, and they're a little beat up. But we got the White Album from like one of our parents, and like I was like, oh, this is great, like old school. When you listen to it by itself, like when you're like, hey, I'm putting up, and you're like, you don't have it on like CD, you can't skip, it's just
old
there.
Thing.
That mofo long. That mofo is long. When I'm just like you put that little thing on and like you ain't moving it. It's just going. You're like, oh, number 9. And I was just like, it's like you start to be like, they just didn't give a fuck, during that time. But I was like, but yeah. So I do love the White Album, but when you got it on vinyl and there ain't no skip, that's a long album, man.
You've got to have a big old set of testes to listen. Piggies? To be like, Piggy's on here. I was like, yes.
That is the greatest song George has ever done.
Yeah.
Well, obviously in Blackbird, I'm not going to stroke its cock any more than has already been done in this world. But it deserves all the stroking that it gets.
No.
But Piggies.
Damn.
Yeah.
Damn. Now, back in the USSR, like I usually skip that first one. I was like, I've heard it enough in this world, but like everything else, let it play.
So yeah, to me, this is a 10.
And back. Yeah.
And we're back.
So then it's like I say, it's difficult now to look back on how influential this movie was and kind of like everything it captures. So this actually incorporates a lot of like French New Wave techniques of like, it's very minimal. It's very stripped down directing. they go for like kind of a weird hyper realism with the actors, because you have to with the Beatles because they're not natural performers in terms of acting. So they go for kind of a minimalist, realistic approach to filmmaking. And so this is kind of the beginning of like the mockumentary, like the sort of
a Spinal Tap.
Yeah.
You Are There kind of a thing. Yeah. This film kind of invented that. And so, and to me, it's a lot of fun. Like, I get a lot of fun out of watching it. Like, I appreciate different eras of the Beatles in different ways. It's kind of like when my wife and I toured the Picasso Museum in Barcelona, there were different, like, wings for different periods of Picasso. And, you know,
Love wings.
There was exactly Paul McCartney again.
Yeah.
But, you know, they had Picasso's blue period and like his pigeons, like the different stuff he painted at different points in his career. And the Beatles are like that. You could go into a Beatles museum. There are different rooms and different things.
They're very segmented. Yeah.
And so, and there's something great to appreciate about all of them. To me, this is them when they were still pretty carefree, and all the fights they would have later and all the scandals and trouble they would get into later, and the falling out they would have with each other. That's still years in the future. You get to see them when they're still like young and crazy and carefree.
That's valid. Yeah.
And they're having fun. And so I think of it from that point of view. Like, you get to see them when they're still having fun. You know, it's like they're a group who called their shot before they became famous. Of like John and Paul writing songs, and they were saying, "Let's write ourselves a mansion. Let's write ourselves a sports car. Let's write the song that's going to make us famous." They would literally say that when they would write songs, and so they called their shot. And now you get to see them with this movie, like hitting it out of the park.
Yeah.
So it's, to me, for that reason, it's kind of fun to watch. It has that sort of that wild energy to it.
And that goes back to the whole thing. Like, we can't, as a Beatle fanatic, you can't separate that. Like, you guys can. It was like, I see so much more than just filmography or cinematography or just the acting in general. Like, I see them like, oh, fuck, man. They're just fucking like they don't know that like in 5 years they're gonna fucking like hate each other.
Yeah.
And it was like, I mean, this is gonna be intense. It's like, or they're gonna start dropping acid hard in 5 years. Like I can't separate that. So like when I watch it, like you're kind of the same thing. Like I'm almost watching it and being like, oh, like it's my children.
Yeah.
So that's so cute. It was like
so innocent.
Yeah, they're so innocent. It's like, yeah, you're about to do a lot of drugs, man.
Yeah.
It was like, so yeah, I get that.
So, I mean, for me, the manufacturing a story around the album didn't do it for me. But the Peter Jackson, like, putting all the video together and them literally like sitting there learning. I don't think it was Let It Be. I can't remember what song.
Get Back takes shape.
It was back. It was them being like, oh, hey, I've got a little something to play. And then they start playing it. You're like, that's the proto version of a song I fucking know. And I'm watching them learn it in real time and work it. And then like, it's okay. This is fucked up because it's one of my favorite films, 13th Warrior, where they're sitting around the camp
every fucking time, man.
It comes back to 13.
I know, but it's what it immediately made me think of. It's the only thing I could think of that would sync it up. But when Antonio Banderas is sitting around the campfire and is like, doesn't know the language of whatever, but like slowly starts to like learn the Viking language or the Norse or whatever, and then finally gets it. That's what it was like watching Paul McCartney like play the song, and you're like, oh, he's almost there. Like,
yeah,
no, and all of a sudden you're like, nah, you fucked up that note, and you're like, oh wait, no, you can tighten it up. You're almost there. You almost got it.
Yeah.
Like that, I'm down with. Like the documentary style, absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah. And that's like what you're saying about Batman. Like, whatever taste you like for it, there's something for that. You know, there's different Batman movies.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But yeah, for me, this is a 10. So,
yeah.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. It's like, and again, that's a Beatle thing too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Definitely. Yep. A super fandom. But yeah, it's been another episode of Cinema Vino. Thank you guys very much. We got to check on Travis's moon, which is coming up high in the sky probably right about now. So thank you guys so much for joining us. Great movies, Only Drunker.
Yes.
We got T.O.
Yo.
We got TB. We got Shoujo.
Yo.
Sojo's in the bathroom. Yeah.
And my name's Todd. We'll see you guys next time.
Love you guys.
Peace.